Now on YouTube, it's time for some alternative commentary action with the Commentary Hub.
There's headed by Moreno, and it's 2-1 to Arsenal.
Look at that pass! Goal for Manchester City!
Takes this corner, whips it in, it's headed and it's a goal, and it's that man, Gabriel.
Liverpool have equalised. Lovely improvisational touch from Curtis Jones.
Oh, what a goal! Wow, take it out!
Hello there and welcome back to the Commentary Hub, the best place to find your alternative radio commentary for all of the world's greatest football games. My name is Charles Kim and I'll be giving you today's coverage over PSG versus Newcastle United in the UEFA Champions League. Both teams will be looking to get 3 points here that will secure them a automatic qualification for the next knockout phase. Anything else and they could slip into the dreaded playoffs. Other notable teams are going to be kicking off at the same time today, such as Manchester City, Frankfurt, Tottenham Hotspur, Arsenal and a few others. Make sure you keep track of all these teams because depending on the results that these other teams get, could very well change the fortune of Newcastle and PSG. PSG are the hosts today, Newcastle are visiting. The two teams have met before, but this was back in 2023. Some things have changed, of course. Kylian Mbappe, who did score in that game, is no longer playing for PSG, but other things have stayed the same. Dan Burn is the captain today, and Eddie Howe is still managing. Newcastle have won 4 of their last 6 games in the UEFA Champions League, keeping a clean sheet in all 4 victories. Only league phase leaders Arsenal have won more games to nil in the competition this season. PSG, on the other hand, have had some turbulent form in the Champions League recently, although they did beat Auxerre 1-0 in Ligue 1 the other day. Newcastle are the visitors here, and their formation is a 3-4-3. Nick Pope starts between the sticks here. In front of him, a centre-back trio of Malik Thiaw, Sven Botman and Dan Burn form a formidable defence in front of him. At left wing-back is Lewis Hall, at right wing-back, Lewis Miley. The centre mid pivot is Italian Sandro Tonali and Jacob Ramsey. On the left wing is Joe Willock. Anthony Elanga flanks him on the right, and Nick Voltemade, the German superstar, starts straight through the middle. And the hosts are playing a strong lineup as well. Russian goalkeeper Matvei Safonov starts between the sticks, whilst captain Achraf Hakimi returns from AFCON and starts at right back. Nuno Mendes starts at left back, whilst in between Marquinhos starts alongside William Pacho, In front of them, a midfield trio of Warren Zaïre-Emery, Vitinha and João Neves. The front three consists of Bradley Barcola, Ballon d'Or winner Ousmane Dembele and Georgian superstar Krivicka Kvaratskhelia. On the bench for both teams are a selection of pretty strong players as well. Newcastle are missing Harvey Barnes and Anthony Gordon, their 2 top goal scorers. They'll be watching the game today from the bench. And the atmosphere here at Paris is certainly lively. If you can't hear them already, the ultras are setting off a barrage of pyrotechnics. And that man, Ousmane Dembele, he'll be the one to look out for. Watching the game is João Fernandes, who recently signed from Barcelona. You'll be seeing what kind of football club he'll be joining very soon. João Fernandes, of course, being another Spaniard to add to the list of players that PSG have. But João Fernandes is not simply just a Spaniard, he is also half Filipino. He's already been contacted by the Filipino Football Federation to be asked if he wants to be part of their future plans. Team Asia hasn't got back yet, but as for now, I think his priorities lie on PSG, and he's going to see how they'll play today. We are just a couple minutes away from kickoff. My name is Charles Kim. You are tuned in to the Commentary Hub. Of course, the best place to get your alternative radio commentary for some of the world's greatest games of football. And very quickly, here are the lineups once more in case you missed them. PSG, the hosts. Starting in net is Matvei Safonov. At right back is Achraf Hakimi. At left back, Nuno Mendes. centre-back duo of Marquinhos and William Pacho. Midfield three of João Neves, Vitinha, Warren Zaire-Emery, whilst the attack consists of Bradley Barcola, Ousmane Dembele and Kvaratskhelia Kvaratskhelia. Whilst Newcastle start with Nick Pope between the sticks and then a centre-back trio of Malik Thiaw, Sven Botman, Dan Burn. On the left wing-back position is Lewis Hall, on the opposite side is Lewis Miley. The two centre-mids holding down the fort will be Sandro Tonali and Jacob Ramsey, whilst the front three consist of Joe Willock, Nick Voltemade and Anthony Elanga. Today's referee will be Slavko Vincic, with the assistant referees Tomas Klancinic and Adras Kovacic also there to support him. Newcastle's captain will be Dan Burn. PSG's captain will be Marquinhos. The Brazilian has already scored one goal this season in the UCL, which was against PSG's first opponents of the season, Atalanta. PSG fans are absolutely drowning out the atmosphere here at the Parc des Princes, but Newcastle fans trying to make a ruckus of their own. It's not often that Newcastle go to France, actually. This is the 10th away game in France. The 10th away game in France in Newcastle's entire history. However, the last time they actually won a game in France was in 2004 in the UEFA Cup. Some time has definitely passed. Some ownership has definitely gone through the club at Newcastle. So much has changed, but all of that could also change today. As we look towards kickoff, the players' huddles have broken. Safonov heading back to his net, sizing himself up. He's got the number 39 shirt on today, long sleeves, and so does Nick Voltemade. It's actually part of his signature look. Newcastle will be attacking from right to left. PSG will be attacking left to right. Ousmane Dembele starts the kickoff back to the goalkeeper Safonov, and PSG immediately break their formation and get into their fluid style of attacking that we're used to. They're out there with the 4-3-3 formation. It's actually Newcastle with the 4-3-4-3 formation. Bit of a tongue twister there. Tell you who else will also be doing plenty of twisting. It will be Kvaratskhelia, the Georgian superstar on the right wing today for PSG, known for his silky dribbling, already causing a little bit of trouble there for Lewis Hall. Lewis Hall, of course, already made 80 appearances for Newcastle since joining from Chelsea in 2023, but he is still 21 years old, and PSG already look to start their counter-attack, but it's blocked there nicely by Lewis Miley at the right wing-back position. It was started quite fast there by Bradley Barcola. His touch was a little bit heavy, and it did get blocked there by Sven Botman, his trailing boot, managing to catch Bradley Barcola's attempt to pass to his right in the box, possibly finding Ousmane Dembele. Although Lewis Miley did grab him from the back, the referee, Slavko Vincic, is currently talking through his microphone to VAR. There is a potential penalty check. It's only the first minute of the game. Currently PSG 0, Newcastle 0. The VAR check looks to be coming from a potential foul by Lewis Miley against Bradley Barcola. PSG were on the break really quickly. Bradley Barcola abusing some of his pace to run into the box. It looks like Lewis Miley could have pulled him back as Barcola tried to square it, but Sven Botman's trailing leg got in the way and blocked it. Or actually, upon closer inspection, it looks to be a potential handball call against Lewis Miley. When Sven Botman's trailing leg cleared the ball, it bounced up onto Barcola and then onto Lewis Miley's right arm, which was trailing out as he was running behind Barcola. And the referee, Slavko Vincic, says that he will have a look at the VAR monitor. The Slovenian referee is going to go have a look at the VAR monitor right now. This could be huge. The last time Newcastle came to the Parc des Princes was in 2023. They drew 1-1. Meanwhile, in the reverse fixture, PSG lost 4-1 at St James's Park. An early goal here could change a lot of things here. Of course, as previously mentioned, PSG did lose their last Champions League game to Sporting CP. Slavko Vincic coming away from the VAR monitor. What is he saying? It looks to be a penalty awarded for a handball committed by right-back Lewis Miley. Lewis Miley, I mean, that is absolutely brutal for the English 19-year-old defender. Made 75 appearances for Newcastle so far in his career. I mean, he has been a fantastic asset for the Magpies, but unfortunately, his handball could possibly give PSG the lead here. It was totally on accident, but unfortunately these incidents can happen. In case you're just tuning in now, it's the 3rd minute. PSG have been awarded a penalty for a handball committed by Lewis Miley. Purely accidental, but it was a handball and it was obstructing the play here. Ousmane Dembele steps up to take the penalty, plants the ball, takes a deep breath. Nick Pope stands defiantly in front of him, actually ordering his defenders to get ready around the penalty area. PSG have plenty of pacey players ready to pounce on any rebounds, keep a close eye on Barcola and Kvaratskhelia. Dembele standing just outside the box. It's a long run-up, Nick Pope raising his arms, and the referee getting everything ready, ordering the players to stay right behind the box. Dembele sizing himself up now, referee blows his whistle, Dembele's run, right-footed, penalty is saved by Nick Pope. Ousmane Dembele's penalty has just been saved by Nick Pope. He went to go side-footed with his favoured right foot into the bottom right-hand corner, but Nick Pope dives low and paws it away with his left arm. It's a fantastic save by Nick Pope and a corner to PSG. Kvaratskhelia plays it short. Ousmane Dembele plays it back to Hakimi, who tries to cross it into the box. Kicked away there by a Newcastle defender, and the referee blows for offside. Wow, just a lot to absorb there, so let me recap for anyone who's just tuning in now. A VAR check happened and PSG were awarded a penalty for a handball committed by Lewis Miley in the box after Bradley Barcola tried to cross it sideways, squared across in the box. Dembele tried to take the penalty, and unfortunately for PSG, Nick Pope denied them the opportunity to take the lead. A strong left hand from the English goalkeeper as he dived low to his left. Luis Enrique not looking the happiest so far, but the weather is quite frigid over there in Paris. I don't think many managers would be happy sitting on the bench today. And Newcastle get it started immediately with a goal kick, and it will go out for a PSG goal kick. And yeah, here's the incident that led to the possible offside. Achraf Hakimi sort of crosses it in from deep, but it looks like a number of PSG players were offside. There was no way that they were going to get away with that one. 5th minute here at the Parc Des Princes. PSG 0, Newcastle 0. You are currently listening on the Commentary Hub. My name is Charles Kin, and I am giving you the live coverage for today's UEFA Champions League game between PSG and Newcastle. Long goal kick there from the Russian goalkeeper Safonov. He's actually playing in the place of Lucas Chevalier, who's PSG's normal goalkeeper. Safonov has only made one appearance in the Champions League, and looks like Luis Enrique has given the Russian an opportunity to play. Actually, here comes Nuno Mendes down the left wing, intercepted there by Tonali, who tries to get it away, but Vitinha gets in the way and snatches the ball straight off him. Here is Vitinha on the left wing. Barcola receives it, runs into a bit of traffic there from Tonali. Is actually ping-ponging around between Mendes and Tonali. Elanga will follow, but Mendes decides to play it back, the safe option, back to his defenders. And the game will sort of have a soft reset. Dembele, Mendes and Vitinha doing some quick 1-2, some cute triangles there to try and get their way out of the Newcastle defence, which they do successfully. It's back now to the defender here, William Pacho, the left-footed centre-back, and Vitinha has dropped deep to pick it up. Zaire Emery, has dropped deep to pick it up back to the centre circle, and it's gone back to Nuno Mendes, and now back to João Neves. The Portuguese superstar has been absolutely vital for PSG's campaign so far, although he was injured and there was some injury doubts about whether he would be able to play. Looks like he's fit enough to start this game. Here is Vitinha. Jockeying him is Elanga, who has to back off as he passes it out to Hakimi. Hakimi again being followed there by Dan Burn, who has run a remarkably long length to get up the pitch. And here comes Kvaratskhelia on the break, just running past the halfway line. Lewis Hall having to track back and try and stop him. In the middle is Vitinha, all alone, fake shot on the right volley and into the back of the net. PSG take the lead in the 7th minute. Chevalier celebrating from the bench. Vitinha has scored for PSG. It's the 7th minute. PSG 1, Newcastle 0. A bit of quick thinking, intelligent play there from PSG. And I talked earlier about the pace that PSG had on offer from Kvaratskhelia and Barcola. Well, actually, it was this time on the right wing for PSG. It was Kvaratskhelia. He received the ball on the halfway line. A good pass there from Dembele, who dropped in deep back to the centre circle. Kvaratskhelia then takes on his man. Dan Burn doesn't get back in time. Vitinha completely on his own in the middle, just outside the D. Takes one step forwards. Lewis Hall dives in, completely mistakes Vitinha's pacing, and he falls to the ground. Vitinha gets plenty of space in front of him to place his shot into the bottom right-hand corner. It's a slow, graceful shot. Nick Pope, nothing he can do about that. And Vitinha scores another goal. It's his 5th goal in 8 games in the UCL this season for PSG. It's the 8th minute. PSG 1, Newcastle 0. And PSG, who were denied a goal-scoring opportunity early on with their penalty, they now finally have their goal, through Vitinha. Unsurprising, actually, Vitinha is known for scoring plenty of goals, but mostly actually known for his assists. And actually, before we get there, Tonali has intercepted high up the pitch here. Voltemada does get it with back to goal, but it's a heavy touch. Given away to PSG, but now won back. Here's Lewis Hall on the left-hand side of the box. He's going to try to take on Vitinha, but he tries to get around him, can't get around him, pushed away there by Neves, and his low cross is saved handily by Safonov, the Russian goalkeeper, in between the sticks for PSG. A quick break there from Newcastle, eager to get straight back into the game. Lewis Miley showing a little bit of energy on the left wing for Newcastle. Unable to do much about that. PSG start with a goal kick. Here is Barcola speeding through the midfield. So much space for Kvaratskhelia on the right-hand side. Driving into the box, Kvaratskhelia, a bit of twinkle toes. Lobbed chip. Bit of a sloppy pass there to find Dembele, but it has gone out for a PSG corner. That will be enough. Kvaratskhelia suddenly found himself with plenty of space on the right wing. Drives straight into the box to take on Dan Burn. He keeps backing off and off and off. Deflected pass. Tries to find Ousmane Dembele, who was free on the left-hand side of the box, but it ultimately rolls out for a corner, and it's taken short here by PSG. Elanga trying to jockey Dembele there. Headed away after a cross into the Newcastle box. And now Neves will recollect from the edge. And Marquinhos finds himself on the right wing all alone, plenty of space, passes back to Hakimi, who they seem to have swapped positions there, and they switch the play to the other side of the pitch, top side of the pitch, back to Nuno Mendes. Newcastle with all their players in their own half. PSG just carving them up open once again. Getting behind Lewis Miley is Barcola. Supporting him is Vitinha, who then passes it off again. Back to another supporting PSG player. It's a cheeky 1-2 here from PSG, and a right-footed shot from Barcola is saved by Nick Pope. And Tonali will try and get it away. Jockeying him now is Vitinha, making it difficult for him, and he does try to start the counter-attack, but Marquinhos with a great diving save there. And actually it was Dembele with the shot, not Barcola, It was a really great 1-2 there between Dembele and Neves inside Newcastle's own box. PSG moving way too quick for Newcastle's defenders. Nick Pope, however, coming up with a really solid left-handed save in there for the Newcastle defence, save them of their blushes. Again, some of these Newcastle defenders, they stood there like statues as the PSG players just continue to sort of use their pace to just sort of run around them. It's a little bit concerning here for Eddie Howe. It's only the 11th minute though, still plenty of time left in this game. As it stands now with the current scores, Newcastle will be in 11th. That means that they will have to go to the Champions League playoffs if they want to make the knockout stages. There has also been some news. Man City have just scored in their game. It is currently 1-0 to Man City. And these are all scores that we have to pay attention to, because PSG and Newcastle, before this game starts, were both tied on points, 13 points each. PSG in 6th place, Newcastle in 7th place. And Newcastle looking to start the counter-attack. Voltemada does try to head it onto Elanga, but unfortunately it doesn't go quite the direction he wanted, and it's cleared by Mendes, and now the Russian goalkeeper Safonov. Touch here now by Dembele, who's collected it by the halfway line. Now Vitinha. We can see what he can do in these left-wing spaces. He's got Barcola to his support, who's overlapped. Miley trying to track back and make sure he doesn't make a similar mistake. Barcola playing with him, driven into the box now, who finds Neves on the edge of the box, takes a cut inside, and then the shot there from Kvaratskhelia. It's a little bit weak, straight down the goalkeeper's throat. Nick Pope not worried about that whatsoever. And once again, Newcastle's defence quite slow here to react. Wasn't too difficult for Neves to toy around with the defence there in their own box. Does eventually lay it off to Kvaratskhelia. Tries a left-footed power drive. Unfortunately, not a lot of power there, and he went straight towards Nick Pope. Possession back to PSG. Kicked up long there by Safonov, the goalkeeper. Dan Burn tries to contest it by heading it away from Kvaratskhelia. Well, we already know only one player is going to win that. Now it's Lewis Hall driving up through the midfield. He has tucked inside from the left wing position. Joe Willock now with the ball, passes it back into the midfield. Here's Tonali. Vitinha is trying to block him, backs away. Newcastle also back away, back to the centre-back Sven Botman, who will try and find the middle route there to... Sorry, who will try and find the middle route there to Elanga, who gets pushed over there by Marquinhos. Bit of muscle there, pushing the Swede out of the way, and now the ball is back to Dan Burn just behind the halfway line. Miley now with the ball. Joe Willock looking to overlap. Here he is, Joe Willock. Taking on Hakimi, and now Willock has continued his run, and a cross goes into the box here, and suddenly there is a chance for Newcastle, and it's volleyed over the bar by Lewis Miley. Newcastle showing a little bit of attacking threat here. Wasn't the most convincing, but it was still a good chance nonetheless. Joe Willock continued his run down the left wing, playing a cute 1-2 with Anthony Elanga, allowing Joe Willock to slip in behind. His cross wasn't the best though. He did cross it straight from the byline. Safonov did get a touch on it to try tip it away from the goal, but it only fell to a very lonely Lewis Miley, who wasn't being tracked by the PSG defenders. But speaking of PSG defenders, here comes Achraf Hakimi running down the right hand side of the pitch. Plenty of space in front of him. Burn trying to close him down. He crosses it into the middle of the pitch. Ousmane Dembele tries to get there, but it's blocked well there by the Newcastle defender. Lewis Miley retrieves the ball. Sorry, Lewis Hall, excuse me. Many Lewises on the pitch. He does retrieve the ball. It is being jockeyed there by Hakimi, but he does get it away. Lewis Hall again tries to clear it straight into the path of Vitinha. He's not done very well there, has he? Barcola plays it off to Ousmane Dembele. He's got support to his left in the form of Neves. Dembele then receives it back. He's on the edge of the box. Plenty of PSG players in the middle, including Kvaratskhelia, who can't get on the end of that cross from Dembele. Neves asking, why didn't you pass it to me? I was open, and indeed he was. Dembele had the choice of passing it along the ground to his left. João Neves was all open just on the edge of the box there, but Dembele opted to try cross it into the crowded Newcastle box. And here is a PSG corner. Kvaratskhelia getting ready to take it. Here it goes. It's an in-swinger there, headed away there by Dan Burn, it looks. Newcastle defenders scrambling back to get into formation. A missed header there from Anthony Elanga, cleared there by Vitinha. Good bit of defending there. Hakimi now passes it on to Dembele, and there's a lovely bit of trickery there from Dembele, who plays with the ball twice with his knees and then kicks it in the air to pass it back to Hakimi after a headed clearance there by Hakimi. What a wonderful footballer PSG have on their hands there. Vitinha now back to Neves. Vitinha again. Elanga trying to close him down. Waltemada looking a little bit tired there as he watches the two Portuguese players do plenty of 1-2s. Perhaps there's not much he can do. Waltemada known for his pace and his power, but hasn't really been getting involved in this game so far, except for a few mistimed headed passes. Here's Hakimi now. PSG with the majority of possession tries to play a 1-2 there, but Tonali gets in behind Kvaratskhelia, throws off his balance, and now PSG have to play it all the way back to Marquinhos. Now Pacho again tries to clear it there, bumps into a Newcastle attacker who heads it down to Waltemada, who plays a 1-2. Newcastle looking to hesitate a little bit, allowing PSG to regroup. Vitinha jogging all the way back from the halfway line to rejoin the defence here, and Newcastle go all the way back to step one. They've gone all the way back to beyond the centre circle. Lewis Hall having to drop deep to collect it, but they don't have the luxury of time on their hands. Lewis Hall is being hounded there by Kvaratskhelia and actually loses possession in the midfield. Re-won by Newcastle though, who tried to play it long to Elanga, but he couldn't get there. It was cleared by William Pacho, and now PSG have the possession. Playing with plenty of grace actually, PSG, plenty of opportunities to clear it, but they instead decide to recycle the possession, because now it's back to Kvaratskhelia on the right wing. This time not so much space. Dan Burn and Lewis Hall, trying to get my Lewis's right there, have come back to block the space. PSG perhaps losing a little bit of that energy they had at the beginning. They had plenty of momentum at the start, but this is a team you don't want to give any chances to because you never know what kind of danger they could conjure up. Vitinha now with the ball near the centre circle. Voltemade hawkishly looking at him, seeing if there's an opportunity to lunge at him. Nicolas Voltemade, obviously Newcastle's German superstar, joined them in the summer for a big fee. But he hasn't scored a goal since December. Although he did score twice against Chelsea, perhaps he could make some sort of impact here. And there's a long ball there towards Barcola, who won't be able to get there. Miley was running him down, but that wouldn't have made a difference. The pass was simply too far for Barcola to catch to, and it is now a Newcastle throw deep into their own territory. Throw-in played here by Newcastle, but they've got to be careful. Plenty of PSG players swarming their territory right now. Elanga tries to begin the counter-attack, but he's actually barged in the back there by Kvaratskhelia as they both go in to try and challenge for the ball. Kvaratskhelia is actually fallen on the floor here, grabbing his ankle. Referee doesn't seem to be falling for the theatrics though, but although he has produced a yellow card for a PSG player, I can't quite see who it is yet. Oh, actually, excuse me, it's for Anthony Elanga. Yellow card there for Newcastle's Anthony Elanga, even though he was fouled by Kvaratskhelia. They both came into the 50-50. Anthony Elanga tried to start the counter-attack as fast as he could. Took a bit of a long touch though. Kvaratskhelia decides to go in and try regain the ball, but they bump into each other and they both fall over. Referee did give the foul in favour of Newcastle, but also gave a yellow card to Anthony Elanga. Looks like it was because, well, I think he said a few unsavoury comments to the referee. Kvaratskhelia is still on the ground here. There are some concerns as the PSG physios do get onto the pitch. Plenty of players swarming the referee now. Dan Burn and Marquinhos discussing what exactly happened. And on the sidelines actually is a PSG player looking to warm up. It looks like Desiree Doué, if I can see it correctly. I can't quite see it. And here's the replay of Kvaratskelia's collision. He does seem to take the worst sort of hit out of the two, even though it was a fair challenge for both of them. I mean, it was definitely a foul by Kvaratskhelia, but he did actually end up worse out of it. Anthony Elanga, all he did was really sort of fall backwards and slide on his bottom. Kvaratskhelia, meanwhile, collided from the side. Indeed, he pushed Elanga over, but he does sort of spin out from it. Possibly landed on his ankle, a little bit funny. And Desiree Doué is getting ready on the substitution bench. Perhaps he will be coming on as replacement for Kvaratskhelia. What a shame that would be. Kvaratskhelia is an absolute joy to watch, and he's actually had quite a good shift today, causing plenty of havoc for Lewis Hall and Dan Burn. Although Desiree Doué, I'm sure, can do just as well. Luis Enrique looking a little bit concerned, giving instructions to Desiree Doué. And there it is, there's the telltale sign. Vitinha doing the old substitution sign with his fingers, trying to tell Luis Enrique that something isn't quite right. PSG physios now spraying the, I don't even know what it's called, the magical spray on Kvaratskelia's ankles, perhaps to soothe the pain, and he is now being helped off the pitch by one of the physios and Achraf Hakimi. This does not look good for PSG whatsoever. If you're tuning in now, my name is Charles Kim. I'm giving you live coverage between PSG and Newcastle United in the UEFA Champions League. It's currently the 21st minute. PSG 1, Newcastle 0. We're currently in the middle of some stoppage as Desiree Doué looks to be the first substitute for PSG, coming on for a injured Kvaratskhelia. As I said before, if you're just tuning in, we're currently having a small stoppage as an injured Kvaratskhelia comes off for Desiree Doué. Kvaratskhelia again injured after a collision with Anthony Elanga, the Swedish winger for Newcastle. Anthony Elanga was actually given a yellow card. I believe it was for some unsavoury things he said to the referee in regards to that awful collision. And the entirety of the Newcastle team has gone up. Nick Pope is on his own to take this free kick. And here he does. It's a long free kick. Newcastle immediately surging into the box. Headed away there by Botman and then punted long there by the PSG defender. Dembele immediately takes a touch to bring it down. He's tried to be jockeyed there by the Newcastle defender, but it doesn't stop him from passing it back towards safety, towards Vitinha. Dembele again receives the ball on the left-hand wing. Vitinha now running into the middle, looks for options, plays it safe to Hakimi, who's advanced far up. Barcola is on the left wing on his own, as is Doué, and Doué is the option. Plays it back into the middle towards Vitinha. Sorry, that was Neves, excuse me. In the same way that there's two Lewises, also two Portuguese, and can get mixed up from the view up in the gantry. Pacho now plays it into the midfield, intercepted there by Tonali, but his interception bounces only to a PSG player, and then Hakimi plays a lovely ball over the top towards Dembele, who, as he tries to take a touch, is down there by a Newcastle defender. Referee says no foul, play on. Now Voltemade bringing in his counter-attack, swarmed there by Zaire Emery, but now Tonali will try and counter-attack using a bit of his pace to try and get around Zaire Emery. Nearly does so as he approaches the box, but Zaire Emery does really well and manages to get the ball off him. No need for a push, no need for a shove, no going to ground, literally just snags the ball off him with a very deft and tidy tackle, and now PSG have the ball back. Here's William Pacho, Nuno Mendes, now Vitinha, who can start the counter-attack from deep. Surveying his options, Hakimi is to the right of him, doesn't go for him, instead goes for Neves, who has dropped deep. Here is Neves again. Plays it back to William Pacho. PSG opting to retain the possession and now recycle it, looking for another chance. Dembele is lurking near the Newcastle defence there. A ring of steel forming from the Newcastle defence, but as we saw earlier, PSG have plenty of pace and trickery that they can use to actually abuse Newcastle's very strong and sturdy defence. Here is João Neves dribbling through the centre circle now, surveying his options, just like William Pacho did before, and Vitinha. Indeed, here's Zaire Emery back to the substitute Desiree Doué on the right wing. Closed there by Joe Willock, forcing Desiree Doué to pass it back to the defender. Now Marquinhos. Here is Neves. Opts to play out wide to the left wing. Here's Barcola looking down at his nemesis, Lewis Miley there. Opts not to go forwards though, instead tries to play it through the middle, but is dispossessed with that pass. Now Dan Burn, who is forced to clear it, or looks to be an attempted lobbed pass towards Anthony Elanga, but no dice, and it is back to the Russian goalkeeper being in between PSG's sticks. Safonov, usually it's Chevalier, but today Safonov. And the referee actually blows there for what looks to be a handball, I believe. Newcastle and PS jockeying for it. Or actually, excuse me, it's for a high boot there from Dan Burn. He did try to rush in to try and snatch the ball off of Desiree Doué. It was bouncing in the air, but the boot was too high for the referee's liking. The referee being Slovenian referee Slavko Vincic, who was the one to award the penalty earlier in the game, in case you missed that. And actually, here comes Barcola on the counter-attack. It was a bouncing ball. It wasn't the greatest first touch, but it was enough to bounce it around the Newcastle right-back Lewis Miley, and now Ousmane Dembele is on the edge of the Newcastle box, passes it back to Vitinha, looks to try and shoot again, decides not to, a fake-out shot. Hakimi now on the right-hand side, passes it now to Neves, back to Neves now. Hakimi waiting out wide for him. Hall jogging towards him to try and contain that space, but Newcastle have actually done quite effectively to constrict that attack, and it is back now to the PSG defence. There's no reason to be concerned about Lewis Hall's slow jog there. Actually, it was a very deliberate way to use little energy to try and constrict that space. I think Newcastle are finally trying to match the pace of PSG here, and you can definitely see that it is working. There are a lot less sort of punctures through the wing-back areas, which were previously spaces that PSG were abusing. Now here come PSG again, passing it through the midfield rather than the wings this time, and Dembele is dispossessed in the box there by Botman, and the referee will blow for a foul there. Jacob Ramsey looking to begin the counter-attack as quick as possible, but was pushed in the back there by Desiree Doué, who tried to get his right foot in front of Ramsey, try and take the ball off him, inadvertently tripping him over. And now Newcastle have the free kick. It's just in front of the box here, and Tior will take that towards Lewis Hall, who's immediately hounded there by Achraf Hakimi, and there's a fair bit of wrestling going on between the two defenders here, and Lewis Hall looked to try and win that for all he could, but it did unfortunately bounce off of him, and it is a PSG throw-in. Nick Voltemade really not happy with the efforts of his compatriot there. Well, really, not compatriots from different countries, but compatriots in terms of the colour of their hair and the success that they're both having this season. Both obviously blonde players who have contributed massively to Newcastle's season so far, that is. And here come PSG once again. They're all beyond the centre circle once more. Newcastle having to park the bus again. This is getting kind of worrying for Newcastle, although it is a lot more well contained than it was in the first half. Still not ideal, although Jacob Ramsey there does try to hound down Neves, who cuts it back into the midfield to Desiree Doué, who cut inside, snuck in behind the Newcastle defence there, but a heavy touch gets it away from him, and Nick Pope is able to easily collect it as it bundles through the Newcastle defence. Just want to correct myself, that wasn't João Neves, that was actually Zaire Emery, who's had a pretty quiet game so far. He's been a bit of a workhorse this game, but not much to contribute in terms of the attacking side of things. If you're just tuning in, it's currently the 29th minute here between PSG and Newcastle. It's PSG 1, Newcastle 0. My name is Charles Kim, and I've been giving you your coverage today at this UEFA Champions League game. Of course, this is the commentary hub, and of course, this is Joe Willock, who unfortunately during his counter-attack looked to foul the PSG defender there. Eddie Howe is not happy about that whatsoever. It's a bit of a soft foul, to be completely honest. Both Willock and Hakimi were chasing down a bouncing ball. It was getting awfully close to the PSG box. And Joe Willock, looking to outmuscle Hakimi, looks to have pushed him too hard. Hakimi tumbling to the ground pretty easily, actually. Referee looked at that, thought it was enough, and has given PSG a free kick. Eddie Howe not convinced that that was the right decision there from the Slovenian referee Slavko Vincic. And there's some news here from another Champions League game. Manchester City have scored another goal, this time Ryan Cherki. It's 2-0 over there at the Manchester City Stadium. And as things stand, Newcastle has slipped down to 12th. That means they'll be in the playoffs. And things could change though as Voltemade advances going in towards the box. Finds Willock on the left-hand side of the box. Just managed to go around the defenders. Hakimi there. It's not the prettiest things. Warren Zaire Emery heads it down to try and regain possession. It's a little bit risky though as Elanga is trying to press him. Heavy touch there by Barcola, but actually Miley can't close down on time and Zaire Emery is going to run forwards, but Miley does really well to track back and clear it there out for a PSG throw-in just near the halfway line. And there's a good chance that if there was any goal opportunity from that, it may not have stood anyway. When Elanga was in the box close to Warren Zaire Emery, he did put a high boot up. If there was a goal awarded, you never know, that goal could have been disallowed for dangerous play there from Anthony Elanga. Remember, he's already on a yellow card, he's got to be careful. Achraf Hakimi now near the centre circle. Desiree Doué being hounded there by Lewis Hall, a very energetic English wing-back there, trying to make sure that he doesn't get exposed once more. Pass there blocked by Jacob Ramsey. Dembele brought to the ground by Voltemade, the two tangling in the midfield. Here is Neves now for PSG, just jogging past the centre circle. Looking for some options, but not many presenting themselves. Who will play Dembele, who's dropped plenty deep. Now to Marquinhos, who will survey his options. Could have gone right there, actually. Achraf Hakimi was completely open, and Dembele will try to find the right wing option, Desiree Doué, but it is cleared really well there by Lewis Miley, who manages to bring the ball under control and pass it away. In fact, here is Lewis Hall, the Englishman, who managed to do a little bit of trickery there to get away from Achraf Hakimi, who you could sense was coming in from behind him. A little bit of a feint there to get it away. And Newcastle doing really well to get it away. Here's Thiaw now, playing a long pass, but intercepted there by William Pacho, the left-footed centre-back, who will drive into the middle and take a shot straight at Nick Pope. What a goal that would have been from William Pacho, who did a really good job to intercept the long through pass from... Excuse me, let me just recap what just happened. It's the 32nd minute here at the Parc Des Princes. Here is PSG 1, Newcastle 0. If you're just tuning in right now, my name is Charles Kim and I've been giving you a coverage of this UEFA Champions League game. And I can't give you the recap quite yet because PSG are on the counter-attack. Here is Desiree Doué cutting into the inside, passing it now to Vitinha, now to Zaire Emery. Ousmane Dembele dropping in deep to collect that. Now is William Pacho, passes it back to the captain of today for PSG, which is Marquinhos. And let me just recap what happened earlier before my little brain fog incident. The German defender Malik Thiaw for Newcastle received the ball in his own box after some very tidy football there from Newcastle to get away from a bit of a chokehold caused by the pressure from Achraf Hakimi and Desiree Doué. He gets the ball within his own box and plays a really long through ball to try find Elanga on the right wing, and it almost finds him, except the Ecuadorian centre-back William Pacho really effortlessly manages to intercept it. It's actually really well done from him as he gets in front of Elanga. Immediately takes a big touch to get away from Elanga, drives down the pitch and tries to take a shot from way outside the box, but unfortunately goes straight towards Nick Pope. And PSG actually start their own counter-attack here from a throw-in, misjudged there by Lewis Miley, and now PSG have an opportunity. Newcastle's defenders struggling all the way to get back. Achraf Hakimi now with the ball, but runs out of options here, and now Nick Voltemade has regained possession, tries really hard to outpace and outmuscle Desiree Doué, but doesn't manage to, but it does fall back to Joe Willock. And now Sandro Tonali can try and dictate play here. He's been hounded here by the PSG midfielder Neves, but does manage to get it away, and it's back to the left-back Hall, who plays a long switching cross towards Lewis Miley on the other side, who takes a good touch to try and kill all that energy, hounded by Nuno Mendes, but does a really good job to get it away. I did think for a moment that Nuno Mendes would get the better of him, but Lewis Miley, the 19-year-old, done really well here, looking really mature in this game so far, save a few moments where his concentration seemed to be lapsed. A low pass there from the Newcastle defender, and actually intercepted there by Pacho, and passed straight towards Dembele on his back to goal, who passes it back to Neves now. Here is Zaire Emery looking at options, turns around, but actually gets jumped there by Ramsey, who manages to pass it back to a Newcastle defender, and Newcastle playing with triangles here. Really good efforts there from Thiaw, Botman and Tonali. Some lovely triangle possession passing there to try and get out to Willock, who runs to begin the counter-attack, but it has gone out for a PSG throw-in, courtesy to the efforts of João Neves. João Neves doing really well here to get to the left of Willock, push him away from the centre and towards the touchline. And indeed it went out for a throw-in. Newcastle have regained possession. Dan Burn opting to thump it long. Voltemade tries to get it under control, but he seems to try to take a touch with his foot, but the ball travels up his body, bounces off his head and straight back to PSG. They've actually had the majority of the possession here, 68% of the possession, whilst Newcastle have had 32%. And you can definitely tell that it's taken a toll on the stamina of the Newcastle players. They look slightly less organised, although they look quite compact and defensively sound. It doesn't seem to take much to break them open, especially because PSG have so many pacey attackers here. Not to mention the efforts of Zaire Emery, Vitinha and Neves. They've kept Voltemade really quiet this game. PSG now in possession. William Pacho to Zaire Emery, back to Mendes. Now Ousmane Dembele, who's dropping really deep. The formation sheet does say that he's playing as a striker, but it seems to be more like sort of a second striker, centre forward, attacking midfield role. He seems to be doing a little bit of everything, and of course that is the beauty of having a player like Dembele who can thread a pass like that to Barcola, who is sprinting down the left hand side, and Lewis Miley actually matching his pace and going to ground to try and force a corner, which he does brilliantly. Lewis Miley diving in towards the attacker there, using his right foot, hyperextending it to just about tap it out for a corner. Well done there by the defender. And now PSG take their corner. They take it short, actually. They seem to be taking all their corners from that side of the pitch short. This is the top right-hand side of the pitch. Remember, PSG attacking from left to right. And a bit of jockeying here from the Newcastle defenders. A bit of rough play there from Nuno Mendes, who does manage to find Barcola outside of the boot. Cross into the middle, centre circle. Dembele was working there, but he couldn't get the ball down. And instead, side foot volleys it straight over the bar. Nick Pope actually rooted to the spot. It didn't look like he could do anything about it. He couldn't react quick enough. And actually, my bad, it was not Dembele, it was William Pacho, who, despite being a centre-back, was in the position that I would expect Ousmane Dembele to actually be in. Couldn't get the ball under control. He definitely didn't have enough time to take a touch and kill the energy and then go for a shot. He was sort of facing sideways towards goal as he anticipated the cross. Did opt to go for the full volley, sort of trying to pass it in with his left foot. Didn't quite have the technique though, it's gone over, and Newcastle have taken their goal kick, headed away there by Pacho. Although he's not a great goal scorer, he's had a really good defensive game so far. Voltemada unable to get the ball out of his feet as he's surrounded by 4 PSG midfielders there. Manages to get it out to Ramsey, and now Tonali being followed there by Neves. Now to Elanga, who passes it back to Ramsey. Now Tonali again. Dan Burn. Hall is an option on his left. Opts not to go for it because Elanga is here. Crosses it back into the midfield. Can't quite find the target he's looking for. That was Joe Willock there, and Dan Burn accidentally trips over Hakimi as he tries to begin his counter-attack on his way to try and regaining possession. Referee says no foul, and Tonali passes it back to Nick Pope, who hoofs it long. Voltemada looking to try and challenge it there, heads it on. Here he is, Nick Voltemada. Cheeky little back heel there over the top to Elanga, who takes on Desiree Doué. Elanga tries to get around Doué, who lunges in with his right foot, and it appears to go out, and the play will stop momentarily after a pretty good bit of momentum there from Newcastle. It's gone out for a PSG throw. Looks like the final touch came off of Anthony Elanga. Desiree Doué working really hard to track back there. Voltemada has been kept fairly quiet here, but his height really does add plenty to Newcastle's attack, especially when you consider that the 2 other attackers alongside him, Joe Willock and Anthony Elanga, definitely on the shorter side here. And speaking of shorter side, or should I say opposite, Dan Burn now driving into the centre circle from the left wing position here, passes it now to Miley. Now finds a Willock who has tracked all the way back. Elanga now on the left wing, one-on-one against Hakimi. Elanga still going, gets the better of Hakimi, left-footed cross into the midfield, into the box, straight over the top, and Miley will have to go and retrieve. Newcastle regrouping for a moment here. Here's Thiaw on the right wing. Decides to play it back. It's a safe option of Dan Burn, who was waiting near the centre circle. Spreads it wide to the left wing to Elanga, who will try again to take on his man. Decides not to. He's got an option in Lewis Hall, who's overlapped to his left. Looks like he won't take it though, but he is pointing Lewis Hall to make a run. Does do a cheeky 1-2 with him, but does not progress any further than that. It's gone back to Dan Burn, and now actually gone back to Joe Willock, who plays it into the midfield. Joe Willock still making his run. Actually, here comes Ramsey, plays it off. Lewis Miley just manages to keep the ball in near the corner flag at the top of the pitch here, and it's gone out for a Newcastle throw-in after Nuno Mendes charged him down. Good bit of play there from Newcastle, looking a lot more lively than they did before. And as Newcastle prepare for this throw-in, suddenly a wave of white and black Newcastle shirts cascade into the box. It looks like that they're going to take a really long throw. In fact, here comes their dedicated long throw specialist, Lewis Hall, running from the left wing all the way to the right to pick up the ball to take up his throw-in. Plenty of PSG defenders in the box. Voltemada and Burn at the near post, and that's where the throw-in will go. Voltemada tries to head it on. Cleared there by the PSG defender, and now Newcastle will have to track back. Tonali tries to play it back into the mix, but does not work. Desiree Doué tries to close it down. Tonali clears it once again. That one's for safety this time, and PSG will take the throw-in. It was a fairly effective throw-in there. It sort of came in towards the near post, and just help describe the scene a little bit better. The throw-in was really close to the corner flag, hence why they sort of had a faux corner routine there. And Vitinha begins the counter-attack straight from the throw-in. Here is Barcola on the left wing. Back to Dembele in the middle. Here's Neves. He's got Hakimi to his right. Opts to go for Desiree Doué, who is further on the right, who's cutting inside. Tries to do a through pass in towards Neves, who's running into the box. Now back to Vitinha. Barcola. Ousmane Dembele back to Vitinha, who will pass it wide to Hakimi. Lewis Hall charging him down, but then remembers to back off. Remember, they can't give PSG too much space or they'd be in trouble once more. Here is Vitinha again, Dembele, who's dropped incredibly deep now, near the the defensive midfield position, where normally he would be in the attacking midfield position. Vitinha now retrieving the ball once more. Being closed down there by Ramsey, who continues to follow him despite Vitinha having passed the ball to Hakimi. Plays a 1-2 with Desiree Doué. Desiree Doué now dribbling to the right, passes it into the midfield where Ousmane Dembele is waiting. Barcola heads on a cross there from Dembele off the left wing, and Neves is now overlapping him on the left, but is pushed away by some pressure by Sven Botman and Malik Thiaw. PSG still have the ball here, and a through pass is attempted there by Ousmane Dembele towards Desiree Doué, but it comes off a Newcastle defender and ultimately comes off a PSG player for a Newcastle throw. on the bottom side of the pitch here. Lewis Hall surveying his options, going for Tonali, playing a short throw-in, different from the one he played earlier. And PSG looking to try get away from the byline, and it's gone out for a PSG throw-in after deflecting off of the inner thigh of Lewis Hall there. Marquinhos now with the ball, surveying his options, looking to play it into the middle, where Dembele once again has dropped plenty deep. Tonali trying to track him, but fails to do though, and a long lofted ball is there for Barcola, but it's a little bit too far for the Frenchman, and Nick Pope is there to collect it. Barcola, immediately realising that sprinting that fast would be a waste of energy, decides to back off, and now Nick Pope will take a massive kick there towards Voltemade, the German target man, who manages to head it on but can't find anybody. Goes back towards the centre circle towards Desiree Doué, who wins it back, does collide with a Newcastle defender, falls over, loses possession but has won it back. Now running to the centre is Dembele, passes it to Dembele, cleared there by Hall. That back to Miley, and now Jacob Ramsey looking to drive forwards. Behind him is Neves trying to hound him. Jacob Ramsey gets the better of him and passes it to the left wing, where Joe Willock is waiting, who manages to go around João Neves. A little bit of tricky play there, and has found Elanga in the box, left hand side of the box. Dinked chip there, cleared there by the Ecuadorian centre-back for PSG. Touchdown there by Sandro Tonali. Lovely bit of work there from him, a graceful chest touch. And now driving into the middle is the Newcastle attacker. Can't quite see him. Who was that? I believe that was Jacob Ramsey. Yes, indeed, that was Jacob Ramsey driving into the middle near the penalty spot, but unfortunately too many PSG defenders in his way. But it was cleared by a PSG defender, and now Newcastle have another long throw opportunity, because once again they've won a throw in near the corner flag, this time on the bottom side of the pitch, and Lewis Hall will not have to run to the other side. 44th, well, just turned 45th minute here at the Parc Des Princes. PSG 1, Newcastle 0. Newcastle have a throw in which they'll take long, kind of like a corner. Here it is, Lewis Hall's header in there, headed on by Dan Burn at the near post, headed back into the area by Elanga, and PSG managed to clear it. Now Miley will try and win it back. Barcola sort of hounding him down, Lewis Miley running onto it on the right wing here, but Barcola gets the better of him. One touch from him is enough to dispossess Miley, and now PSG will begin their counter-attack, but it's completely misunderstood there by Ousmane Dembele, who actually ran faster than the ball was going. The pass from Vitinha coming a little bit behind him, and now Newcastle have it back quite high up the pitch here. Lewis Hall is near the centre circle, and here he is, he has the ball. Plenty of options now for Newcastle as the wingers look poised to attack on both flanks. Elanga completely wide on the bottom right. They will go to Miley on the right flank though, actually, and funnily enough, Lewis Miley, the left back, has ended up on the right wing for Newcastle. Just shows how desperate they're getting, but also how fluid the football they're playing is. Here's Jacob Ramsey near the centre circle, gets tripped there by the PSG midfielder, and the referee will give the free kick in favour of Newcastle. Was Warren Zaire-Emery there who tripped him. And there has been 3 added minutes for this half. It is now the 46 minutes here. PSG 1, Newcastle 0. And Newcastle have a free kick just maybe 5 yards or so after, to the left of the centre circle will be Sandro Tonali to take it. This could be the last major chance of the game, although you never know. Both teams are known for their fast counter-attacking styles. Here is Tonali's header. Free kick, headed on by Voltemade and back into the centre, and Newcastle have scored. It's 1-1 here. Joe Willock heads it in after Voltemade nods it on back into the centre circle. So back to the penalty spot here. Newcastle fans celebrating with plenty of joy. Look at those limbs over there. It's absolutely fantastic. It's Joe Willock here who scores for Newcastle right before the end of the first half. It is now 1-1. Let me repeat, it is now the 47th minute. Joe Willock has scored to make it PSG 1, Newcastle 1. Sandro Tonali's free kick comes in from deep here, and it's actually headed on by Achraf Hakimi, who tries to head it away, but it only goes as far as Dan Burn, who is lurking near the sort of 6-yard box almost. And as he heads it on, Willock slips in between Vitinha and Zaire-Emery and heads it forwards. Just going past Safanov, the goalkeeper, there's nothing he could do about that. The range was just so close. And PSG now have to try find the lead once more. It's PSG 1, Newcastle 1. And Dembele will take the centre circle kick to resume the game, although there are only 5 seconds left here of this half. Newcastle, against the run of play, have actually managed to get back into this. It did look like for most of it that PSG would extend their lead, and there goes the referee's whistle. Slavko Vincic, our referee today, and that is the end of the first half between PSG and Newcastle. Of course, this is the Commentary Hub, the best place to find your alternative radio commentary for some of the world's best football games. My name is Charles Kim, and I've been giving you your coverage of the UEFA Champions League match between PSG and Newcastle United. Just to summarise what happened in case you're tuning in now, the score is currently PSG 1, Newcastle 1. PSG managed to win a penalty kick early on, courtesy of a Lewis Miley handball. Of course, the referee did have to go to the screen to confirm the decision, but the penalty was given, and Nick Pope actually saved Dembele's shot. However, PSG did take the lead only around 10 minutes later. Kvaratskhelia did hobble off with an injury after a collision with Anthony Elanga, and PSG were mostly on top of the game until the dying seconds there, where a free kick was given to Newcastle and a flick on from Dan Burn within PSG's box gave Joe Willock the opportunity to head home, and the first half has ended 1-1, and we will be right back with you after the end of half time. Of course, there are plenty of other games being covered right now by the Commentary Hub, so make sure you go check those out, and we'll be right back after the break. Hello there and welcome back to the Commentary Hub. My name is Charles Kim and I've been giving you your live coverage of the UEFA Champions League game between PSG and Newcastle United. The first half ended 1-1 and we'll have to see what kind of things we'll see in the second half. Newcastle will be attacking left to right, PSG right to left. Of course, there was 2 goals in the first half, one by Vitinha in the 8th minute and one from Joe Willock in the 47th minute there in added time for Newcastle to try and make things 1-1. Actually came off a bit of a mistake there from the PSG defence, and they'll look to try and rectify some of those sloppy errors. Although there weren't that many, that did come towards the end of the first half though. Perhaps they were just exhausted, and Newcastle will immediately try and hound down the PSG ball after they lost possession from the centre circle from kickoff there. Few bodies going to the down, such as Nuno Mendes, who was hacked down to the ground earlier after a heated exchange there between the defenders and Nuno Mendes, who did try to storm into the middle. He looks completely fine though, does wave off the referee's decision. The referee saying, "Get up." Nuno Mendes saying, "Why should I?" Yeah, it looks like he was entangled there between Anthony Elanga and Malik Thiaw, the German centre-back for Newcastle. Fabian Ruiz actually watching the game from up in the stands there. The Spanish midfielder is injured right now. Has a knee injury, a bruised knee, so he won't be playing in this game. Although many suspected that João Neves wouldn't be playing today because he also had an injury, but looks like one midfielder's in and the other one is out. João Neves has done plenty this game to contribute, although I'm sure some PSG fans are missing Fabian Ruiz. PSG now have a throw-in. Here is Nuno Mendes getting ready to take it in, and he'll play it back towards William Pacho, the Ecuadorian centre-back, who plays it back into the middle towards Marquinhos. Remember, they are playing a back three here, PSG, Marquinhos, Pacho, and then on the right it is Hakimi. Of course, not a pure back three, of course, Hakimi being a right wing back, but he's sort of slid back into the sort of right centre back position. PSG very fluid with their formation, not really playing with a typical striker because it is Ousmane Dembele who's up there, and here he is dropping in deep to support Desiré Doué, who plays it back to Hakimi, being pressed now by Dan Burn, who has risen very far forwards to try and put some pressure on the PSG players. Now driving forwards is Vitinha, looking for options. Neves is waiting for him, opts not go, keeps dribbling, goes past Willock, then passes it on one more to Desiré Doué, who's dropped back. He's got an option, Hakimi further up the pitch, opts not to go for him, goes back to Vitinha, and now Neves on his own in the middle of the pitch. Plenty of space and time here for Neves, who decides to play the safe pass back to Marquinhos. Of course, PSG have had the majority of the possession in the first half as well, as they will probably have in the second half as well. PSG continuing their possession, but they do lose it here, and Tonali wins it back. Now Willock plays it towards Elanga, who can't quite get there. William Pacho was in the way, and it is collected easily there by Safonov, the goalkeeper for PSG. Of course, Matvei Safonov, maybe a name we are less familiar with, because actually it's usually Lucas Chevalier who plays in net for PSG. Luis Enrique opting to rotate the goalkeeper position, giving the Russian goalkeeper Matvei Safonov a chance. He's only actually played one Champions League game this season so far. This is his second, unable to keep a clean sheet. Hasn't really been called up to action because PSG have had all the possession, as they do right now again, because it's back to Marquinhos, although he has been pushed back to his own box. Voltemada looking a lot more lively as he tries to push onto Pacho, but he does manage to pass it all the way up to Barcola, who is running just past now the centre circle. Now is Vitinha, who surveys his options to Neves, and all the way out to Hakimi, who is quite far up the pitch now, as he usually likes to be for PSG, as he also did for Morocco at AFCON. But before we get to talk about Hakimi at AFCON, here's Desiré Doué, takes a lovely touch there to pass it to Dembele. Now Barcola on the edge of the box on the left here, taking on Miley, but Miley gets the better of him. That's some great defending there, as he manages to pinch it off there, and actually doesn't clear it out for a throw-in, manages to find Elanga on the pass, but unfortunately Desiré Doué has cut inside to try and take it off him, and he does, and it's a right-footed outside of the boot curling cross inside, but it bounces off a Newcastle defender and goes back to Elanga, who manages to find Thiaw. Back to Ramsey. Newcastle finding themselves in a spot of bother here as plenty of PSG players surround them, but they managed to get it out to Lewis Hall, who's open on the left wing here. And Dan Burn has ran forward to try and give him an option, but he is mobbed there by Marquinhos, so who opted not to go for him, instead go for Joe Willock, who did score in the first half, taking on Marquinhos, who has been jockeying in this whole time. Voltemada looking a little bit sluggish in the middle there, could have been an option but didn't, but Marquinhos has given it away and Joe Willock now has it, and Voltemada is open inside the box. Zaire Emery looking to close him down. Voltemada does turn on the pivot. Hall takes a touch, too heavy. Back away outside of the box, and now it is back to a Newcastle player who's taking on the defender here, and he has a shot straight at Safanov. It was Jacob Ramsey there who managed to get a hold of that after the scramble caused there by Voltemada, who received the ball on the counter-attack, takes a touch, managed to tuck inside out within the box, does a little bit of a pirouette. It was a incredibly slow pirouette, but for a man of that size, quite impressive. Passes it outside of the box, manages to find Ramsey on the right-hand side of the box after he receives it from Tonali, and Ramsey does take a shot, but it was a pretty tame one from a difficult angle, and Safanov was able to save it pretty handedly. The first major chance of the second half, indeed, it has come from Newcastle. And PSG now have the possession back. And business is back to usual. It is the 51st minute, PSG 1, Newcastle 1. You are listening to the Commentary Hub. My name is Charles Kim. I've been giving you your live coverage here for the UEFA Champions League. As I said before, PSG 1, Newcastle 1. Newcastle coming into this with some better Champions League form. Actually, they just came off the back of a 3-0 victory against PSV Eindhoven. Meanwhile, PSG actually lost their last Champions League game against Sporting CP, and that is what has put them in this perilous situation. Both teams need to win here if they want to guarantee a place in the knockout stages. Otherwise, they will have to go through the ever-dreaded playoff round in the Champions League. Neither team wants to do that, of course, and that is why both are so desperate here not to get just a draw but a win, especially because the teams around them, such as Manchester City, are winning their own games. And a bit of sloppy defending here from Newcastle, and actually it's deflected there off the rear of Barcola, Desiree Douy, excuse me, and straight to the hands of Nick Pope, where it is nice and safe. Just missed a bit of action there, but excuse me, ultimately led to nothing too consequential. Sven Botman did slide in to try and clear it, but the ball bounced off the rear of Desiree Douay, who looked to be turning to shield the ball from the sliding Dutchman. And the ball pinged up, and then Nick Pope was able to collect it, but the collision was pretty tough there from Botman and Desiree Douay. Botman obviously coming in, scything him sideways. Wasn't the cleanest tackle you've ever seen, but you've got to put your body on the line there, and that is something Sven Botman has done quite frequently, and astonishingly has only caught one yellow card in all competitions this season. There's a stat for you there. Sven Botman, a well-loved Dutch defender over at St James's Park, and he's doing pretty well so far here at the Parc des Princes. Some activity now on the PSG bench. We've got some players warming up here, as we do on the Newcastle bench as well. Can't quite get the best view of who it is, but trust me, it's happening. As also you probably can't see, the fans in the stadium, PSG fans, causing quite the ruckus. Pyrotechnics are out, and here is Voltemada, who is also out on the pitch, looking a lot more lively than he did in the first half, being a bit more active by dropping deeper instead of playing with his back towards goal along the PSG defensive line. And Newcastle win a throw-in there after a collision between Hakimi and Dan Burn. Plenty of activity down on the touchline here. Plenty of players here, but we don't know exactly who's going to come on quite yet. But talking about a player who's actually already on here, Lewis Smiley, the 19-year-old, who's done plenty for Newcastle. Had a bit of a difficult game. It's a hard match against Barcola, but he's done well so far as he finds Jacob Ramsey, who crosses it into the box to find Elanga, but it's headed away by Marquinhos. Now back to Jacob Ramsey, who's got options to his right, and he use it. It is indeed Lucas Miley once again. Plays it back to Jacob Ramsey, back towards Elanga, who's dropped back deep. Now to Thiaw. Miley playing some nice triangles here. Jacob Ramsey now has the ball, trying to get away from Zaire Emery, plays it to Elanga, who's now merged to the right wing, goes into the middle. Voltemada now has the ball, jockeying against Marquinhos, but gets ultimately pushed away, and then Jacob Ramsey tries to do an outside of the boot pass across, possibly to find Lewis Howe on the left flank, but it is intercepted there. And now PSG are on the break. Achraf Hakimi on the right wing, jinks inside, try to get past Botman. Achraf Hakimi still going, left-footed shot is blocked by the defender here, but only falls to Desiree Douy, who shoots, and it comes off the head of Lewis Miley, who gets in the way. Sven Botman diving in to clear it, and the referee will blow a foul in favour of Newcastle there. Plenty of action to unpack there, so let's just break down what just happened. Newcastle playing some lovely possession-based football to try and break through PSG's defence, but it is intercepted and pings all the way to Achraf Hakimi, who's open on the right-hand side of the pitch, the top of the pitch actually, because of course PSG attacking from right to left. Achraf Hakimi has all this space, tries to beat the defender, so actually cuts in onto his left foot, tries to take a shot, which is a weaker one, bounces off the defender, and then it falls to Desiree Douy, who tries to shoot, but it pings off of the head of Lewis Hall, who was stood there firm as a wall. Ball bounces into the air, and there's a collision between several players. Of course, referee giving a foul in favour of PSG. Newcastle have to be careful in those situations. Although I have given plenty of praise to Sven Botman and Lewis Miley, they're simply not as fast as Desiree Douay or Ousmane Dembele, or even Barcola for that matter as well. Of course, we saw in the first half Kvaratskhelia was doing plenty of the heavy lifting, but Desiree Douay has done well after coming on as a substitute for the injured Kvaratskhelia. And Nick Pope will take the goal kick, tries to aim it for Voltemada, but can't get the better of the defender, and he's gone out for a PSG throw-in. Hakimi now with the ball. He's looking to take the throw-in, plays it towards Neves, who punts it long just to get it away. Probably the right option, as there were so many Newcastle shirts surrounding the Portuguese midfielder. And although Vitinha just tried to reclaim it here, Lewis Hall, once again mixing up the Lewises, does get it back, and he immediately takes a free kick, and Newcastle have a really big chance here, and it's slid in there by Joe Willock, but the flag is up. Oh, he was running off behind the net to go and celebrate with the away fans, and for a moment I couldn't believe it here either. Eddie Howe's actually smiling in the technical area. It was way too good to be true, and he is just about offside there. Little bit of clever play there from Lewis Hall, the 21-year-old English left back. Was fouled there by Vitinha. Looks to go take a free kick, a quick one with his left foot. Takes the entire PSG defence off by surprise, but not Joe Willock. But unfortunately, he was offside, even though it was a cultured finish to get past Savinov. Lewis Miley now pulls off an expert slide tackle against Barcola to get it away. Them two having a really good battle here on the left wing, and now PSG have a throw in taken by Nuno Mendes, plays it back down towards the centre circle where Vitinha is waiting. In fact, he's always waiting there, looking to restart the play, and now he plays it to, I believe that's Marquinhos, excuse me. Sometimes the view in the gantry isn't the best here. Now Desiree Douay taking on Lewis Hall. Desiree Douay still 1v1ing Hall, looking to go around him. Deep cross in here, try find Barcola, who is not there. Actually, it's Nuno Mendes who tries to take a touch, but the ball does slide in behind him, but he keeps it in. Manages to make it not go out for a throw. Nuno Mendes going in, taking on Miley, tries to cross it in, and then the shot from Zaire Emery goes wide. PSG had a really good chance there. Nuno Mendes actually doing a really good job to get on the end of that long cross. Actually, the ball was going in behind him, and it looked like it was going out for a throw-in, but he manages to do a really good pirouette there, actually, mid-air, turn it backwards, and drive straight back into the box, getting the best of Lewis Miley, who he nearly sends off the pitch with the way he was moving those feet there, the twinkle toes with those boots. And it does deflect his left-footed cross straight into the path of Warren Zaire Emery, who does slice it, unfortunately, on the full volley, and it glides harmlessly wide. Nick Pope not having to be called into action there, and although Newcastle do try to do a counter-attack straight away there, it's tackled out of the way by Marquinhos. A real good slide tackle there from the veteran Brazilian centre-back. And Newcastle have the ball back again. Nick Pope under some pressure here by Dembele, but he does manage to clear the ball in time. Dembele, of course, sort of a jack-of-all-trades player for PSG at the moment. They do have Gonçalo Ramos on the bench if they want a more traditional striker role, but Dembele has done no wrong. He has been able to do everything for PSG so far this game. Act as a winger, a midfielder, at times even a defender, and most of all, his explosive pace is something to watch out for. PSG now have the ball back again after a heavy Nick Voltemada touch. Barcola running down the right hand side of the pitch here, cuts inside, continues to do some more Cruyff turns and then shifts it onto his left foot and then shoots from within the box but straight over. PSG playing with their food a little bit here. Luis Enrique is actually furious with that. Looks to his assistant simply raises his eyebrows and shrugs his shoulders. I suppose you don't want to get on the bad side of Luis Enrique's rants, known for his fiery spirit. After all, that is how he got PSG so far into this tournament last season. Of course, won the whole thing. But Barcola, cutting in from the left wing here, shifting onto the right wing, then cutting as soon as he gets back into the box, cuts back onto his left foot, not once but twice, does 2 or 3 feints in a row, and it does work. Multiple Newcastle defenders do fall to the ground, something like you'd see in a Nike advert, but ultimately his left-footed shot goes straight over the bar. Luis Enrique really not happy with that, and the game has restarted with a Nick Pope goal kick, and Newcastle do look to be taking the counter-attack as fast as they can. Jacob Ramsey downed there by Vitinha. Referee says play on as Newcastle have the possession. Goalkeeper Safonov now has the ball as they dispossess Newcastle. Vitinha is at the centre of that, of course, once again. Now Neves, pulled there by Miley. Not surprising there that the referee has given the foul there, although he does throw up his arm saying, why'd you do that? And Willock is also on the ground for some reason. Must be some sort of collision there with Marquinhos. Didn't quite catch that. Marquinhos having a little bit of a discussion with the referee, although the referee, his steely look there shows that he's not going to be buying any sort of rubbish that comes from the PSG or Newcastle players today. He already gave out a yellow card to Anthony Elanga in the first half, showing that indeed he's not messing around. And Newcastle do begin their counter-attack here straight from the free kick, which they immediately won possession from. Joe Willock does run into the left side of the box here, runs into Hakimi. Hakimi does fall over, but Willock keeps staying on his feet. Dan Burn now has the ball, crosses it into the centre. Elanga tries to jump there, but can't get there. Headed away by Mendes, and now Zaire Emery has it, and now PSG will look to try and begin their counter-attack as Barcola looks to take on Miley once more, but Ramsey's there to support and pushes the ball away from Barcola, who now has to play it back to the defender, and it is now William Pacho just near the D here. And now Marquinhos, Neves now dropping in deep. Neves now driving forwards, looks at his options, and Dembele is there waiting on the edge of the Newcastle defensive line, but opts to play it to Hakimi, who's on the right wing here. Dembele drops deep. Desiree Doué giving him an option on the overlap, but plays it back to Hakimi, who's tucked inside now, and now Vitinha. Now Dembele there taking on Dan Burn, but Dan Burn manages to clear it, and Desiree Doué crossed it in from deep, and nobody's there at the back post, to the relief of Anthony Elanga and Lewis Miley, who lost their men, but actually Nuno Mendes keeps it in and gets the better of Anthony Elanga, and Warren Zaire Emery here has collected the ball and passed it back to the centre, and now Marquinhos can begin PSG's counter-attack here. Obviously they prefer to recycle the possession rather than do anything rash, and Marquinhos has crossed it deep in towards the box, headed away by Zaire Emery. Tries to nod it down actually into the path of a friendly player, but cleared away by Newcastle. Vitinha with a shot outside the box straight at Nick Pope to cap off what was a very intense period for PSG there. Let's just recap what happened here. A good deep cross there from the PSG centre-back. Marquinhos finds Zaire Emery, who heads it across, but it's cleared by a Newcastle defender, and then Vitinha takes a shot from outside the box. And now PSG begin their counter-attack, and Barcola runs into a sea of white and black shirts, Newcastle shirts, but Miley is downed, but referee doesn't take any notice to it. Now Dembele has the box on the left-hand side of the box, and he tries to curl it to the top right corner, but it goes wide. Nick Pope did look like he was going to make a dive, though, so the veteran goalkeeper, he's been to many games, he knows what's going on, even been to a World Cup or two. And even he knew that that was something that could have been seriously, seriously dangerous. Dembele looking disappointed with himself that he couldn't quite get the spin correctly, and it does sail over the crossbar. And now Newcastle will restart with a goal kick. And there is some activity on the bench here. Anthony Gordon and Harvey Barnes getting their kit ready, receiving their instructions from the assistant manager. Newcastle do restart the game with a goal kick. Voltemade can't quite get there. Once again, although Voltemade's height does add plenty of utility for Newcastle, he hasn't really been able to use it that much. Actually, it's been Dan Burn that's been more helpful in these offensive situations, ironically. Gordon and Barnes now getting their final instructions, but not before Newcastle restart the game with a throw-in near the centre circle. They pass it all the way back to the defenders. Sven Botman tries to punt it long, but actually deflects off of Neves, but it falls to Voltemade luckily, and not to Vitinha, who of course is PSG's catalyst, and he has been this game. He's had an excellent game, Vitinha, the Portuguese midfielder. And now all the way back to Zaire Emery and Neves now. Back to Vitinha, who has dropped deep once more and will drive forwards, but spreads the play to the right wing to Neves, who has got back into his natural position. Marquinhos now with the ball. Jacob Ramsey floating around trying to block off some of those lanes of passing that Marquinhos always tries to find, but back to Desiree Doué, who's actually switched sides now. He's on the sort of left wing back position. Barcola's on the other side actually, and Nuno Mendes is offering a good option for an overlap here, but Desiree Doué opts to play it short back to Zaire Emery, who plays it back to Pacho. Now Marquinhos near the centre circle plays it to his right to Hakimi, who's been hounded down there by Lewis Hall. Both Lewis Hall and Lewis Miley, the two Lewises, the left back and the right back, being given plenty of things to do this game. Of course, they've been playing against some really tricky PSG wingers, and here's one of them now, Achraf Hakimi, playing a bit of a winger role here on the right, passes it over to Neves just behind him. Dembele passes it across the face of Tonali. Now Zaire Emery. Dembele again tries to find a free. Neves doesn't. Bounces off of Jacob Ramsey back to Marquinhos, who chips it over to Neves. Neves tackling Hall, who tries to get the better of him and does just about enough with his physicality to get Neves away from the ball, and Tonali's there to support him and tries to clear it, but it's a sloppy short pass there from Joe Willock, who gives it straight back to PSG, and now they have the opportunity to recycle it. Vitinha on his own in the middle, passes it wide to the left wing to Nuno Mendes, who crosses it from deep in. The first time strike from Dembele in the box goes wide, ripples the back of the net. It almost looked like it went in. What a amazing ball there from Nuno Mendes. He was about 7 yards out, sort of diagonally from the box, crosses it in with his left foot, a crossed sort of through ball through the air towards Dembele, who didn't even have to move. It was pinpoint, tries to go for the full volley, sort of side-footed full volley with his left foot, and it goes just wide. Does make the net ripple, but we do have our first substitutions of the second half. Anthony Elanga and Joe Willock come off the pitch. On come Harvey Barnes and Anthony Gordon. Of course, the two stronger attacking options for Newcastle, with Harvey Barnes being Newcastle's top goal scorer this season, actually, with 12 goals so far this season. 12 goals in all comps, 5 of which came in the Champions League. Of course, he scored once against PSV in their last Champions League game, scored twice against Benfica, and scored 1 goal against USG and Marseille as well last winter. Anthony Gordon as well, prolific goal scorer. Anthony Gordon, prolific goal scorer. So we'll have to see the sort of impact that these two players have on the flow of this game. Anthony Gordon, 6 goals and 2 assists in 7 UCL games. The only other English player who has more for an English club in a single season is actually Raheem Sterling back in 2019. Can you believe that? Cast your minds back to that season. What a season of football that was. Right there, indeed, Raheem Sterling, the only English player for an English club who has more goal contributions in a single season than Anthony Gordon. And depending on how far Newcastle get in this tournament, Anthony Gordon could certainly surpass that record. Anyway, here's Nick Pope, who punts it long. Anthony Gordon has moved to the left wing position, Harvey Barnes on the right, and here he is trying to break immediately, but cleared there by Pacho after Gordon tries to play a low, fast through ball. Miley now tries to head it, but it's Warren Zaire Emery who gets there first, and then Vitinha with a totally mistimed clearance there, and the ball falls to Luis Enrique in the technical area. And besides Luis Enrique is actually what looks to be the Portuguese striker Gonçalo Ramos, who this season has mostly been a substitute player throughout for PSG. Although he has been vital for PSG in the Champions League, one of their most important wins, which was against Barcelona in October, was courtesy of a Gonçalo Ramos last-minute winner. What kind of impact will he have? We'll have to see. Obviously, as I said earlier, PSG have been playing without a traditional centre forward, using Dembele to do bits and bobs, and although he has had a great game, he's not really been able to convert his chances, such as the penalty kick that PSG received really early on in the first half. And PSG do have possession back again after that substitute. Gonçalo Ramos looks like he'll be coming on for Barcola. Yes, that is Barcola there, who's not had a terrible game, but he has looked a little bit quiet, and he has been struggling against Lewis Miley. Looks like Desiree Doué is going to keep his position on the left wing position, whilst Ramos and Dembele will be leading the line up top. Dembele looking like he's going to go a little bit wider on the right wing. Let's just remind you again, it is currently PSG 1, Newcastle 1. You're listening on the commentary hub here. My name is Charles Kim. I've been giving you your coverage of this UEFA Champions League game between PSG and Newcastle United. Let me just remind you, the score is currently PSG 1, Newcastle 1. Here is Desiree Doué looking to start PSG's attack. Overlapping is Warren Zaire-Emery, who can't quite take on Miley, so passes it all the way back to Vitinha. Now Marquinhos. Newcastle, all the white and black shirts are back now for Newcastle. PSG have plenty of time and space to try find the best option they have. Dembele plays it into the middle of Vitinha, who looks like he might be sizing himself up for a shot outside the box, but opts not to. Spreads it to the left. Desiree Doué crosses it into the middle and headed on by Hakimi, and it goes over. Desiree Doué crossing the ball with his right foot from deep. Hakimi rushing in from the centre, sneaks in behind Dan Burn, but Dan Burn outmuscling him, and Hakimi's not able to get the sort of angle correct for his header, and he does completely mistime that. It did almost look like Dan Burn had cleared it. He doesn't really need to jump to get over someone like Achraf Hakimi. It's nothing to do with the skill of the player, but more just to do with the sheer size of Dan Burn. Achraf Hakimi doing all he can to impress for the fans after being away for international duty with Morocco. Of course, he played in the final, in the AFCON final. And it will go out for a PSG goal kick. Yeah, as I said before, Anthony Gordon and Harvey Barnes will offer plenty of decent attacking threat here for Newcastle, something that they've been sorely lacking. Joe Willock, of course, did get the goal, but he was substituted off. But Anthony Elanga did struggle this game, as he has struggled all season since his summer transfer from Nottingham Forest, former Manchester United Swedish international. He's not had the greatest of games, £50 million from Forest, 19 appearances in the season so far, but mostly as a substitute. But Newcastle have got the ball back, and the shot's come from outside the box from Gordon, and it's saved there by a diving Safonov, who has to claw it away. But PSG will now begin their counter-attack through Mendes, who manages to get it around Miley, who is tracking back. Now Desiree Doué taking on Miley. Will he keep going? No, he won't. He'll pass it straight back into the centre circle, where Vitinha is waiting once more. Spreads it out wide to the right wing to Neves. Passes it on now to Ousmane Dembele. Stretched really wide here in Newcastle. Voltemada's also come back. Vitinha now, eyeing his options, passes it to his right. Gordon, Voltemada and Tonali all trying to get in the way of this Portuguese duo. Pacho passes it to the left, where he finds Nuno Mendes. Now Desiree Doué on the far left of the pitch here. Desiree Doué looking for options, finds Vitinha, who's in a little bit of space, but closed there by Jacob Ramsey. And now Ousmane Dembele on the right hand side of the pitch here, running towards the inside of the box, but passes it back to Neves, who finds Vitinha. Now back to Nuno Mendes, who tries to cross it, but it deflects off of the Newcastle defender, and now Newcastle have cleared it, and now Gordon is sprinting for the cleared ball. Gordon, Hakimi coming in behind him, who overshoots Gordon. Gordon passes it now into the path of a sprinting Harvey Barnes. He's got Ramsey in support with him, and Jacob Ramsey runs to the box, blocked there wonderfully by Marquinhos, who manages to catch up just in time and prevent Jacob Ramsey from pulling the trigger a little bit earlier. Let's recap what just happened. PSG were on the attack, but Newcastle did manage to get it away, and it was cleared by the Newcastle defence, but Anthony Gordon, the substitute, ran as fast as he could across the entire length of the pitch to try and keep the clearance in bounds. Hakimi ran up behind him, but totally shot the English winger, and Gordon plays it back towards the centre, where Harvey Barnes is running, who offloads it to Ramsey, who then tries to take the shot inside the box, but Marquinhos is there to block it, and now Newcastle have a corner, and it's an in-swinger here from the Newcastle winger, and then the full volley from Tonali goes over the bar. Sorry, so much is going on, can't quite describe all of it, But let's just summarise what happened again here. The corner is taken there by Newcastle. It's taken by Lewis Miley. It's an in-swinger. Safanov flaps. He's absolutely... I can't even see Safanov properly. He is being absolutely mobbed by Newcastle players. His green goalie shirt covered by white and black. He flaps at it with his right arm, not able to leap properly, and the ball sort of falls behind him, straight into the path of Sandro Tonali, who's managed to break free of that initial huddle, goes for the full volley of his right foot, and it goes straight over the bar. And now Newcastle have to restart their attacking efforts, but it's not bad from Newcastle. Some good effort there from the substitutes, and now Voltemade is looking to counter-attack. He's got an option to his left, opts not to go for it, tries to go for the shot from outside the box. He's about 20 yards out or so, was never going to quite go in, especially as the first touch wasn't that great, but it's gone back to Tiov now. Malik Tiov has the ball, passes it to Lewis Miley on the right wing, back one more to Sandro Tonali, who plays it straight through in between the legs of Neves, who then plays it to Barnes, who a quick 1-2 back to Tonali, and he crosses it into the box and unfortunately can't find anybody. Safanov hesitates to come out and punch it, and now it falls to Lewis Miley, who's in the left wing. Quick 1-2 there with Dan Burn. Lewis Miley, low driven cross, cleared there by Pacho, and now Desiree Doué has the ball and he opts to clear it instead. That was incredibly dangerous there from Newcastle. PSG need to be careful. It's currently the 76th minute here. PSG 1, Newcastle 1. And Newcastle, after a flurry of good possession there, will now have to restart once more, but it hasn't taken long as Nick Voltemade has just chipped it over the entire PSG defence after some jockeying against the PSG midfield. He does manage to find Miley, but Miley doesn't have any options, so he goes back towards Ramsey, who tries to ping it long to Harvey Barnes, but it's well intercepted there by Mendes, who then passes it to Zaire Emery, and then back to the inevitable Vitinha, who does a little bit of a sort of pirouette there to get away from the pressing Newcastle midfielders. Jacob Ramsey left for dead right there, pass it back to the goalkeeper, and now PSG can restart their attack with Ousmane Dembele, who's trying to get round Dan Burn, who's been following him this whole game. Desiree Doué now kills the momentum of the cross from Dembele, who's gone the entire length of the pitch. Desiree Doué tries to do a cute outside of the boot cross into the middle of the box where Gonçalo Ramos, the substitute, was waiting. Doesn't work though, as it's cleared by the Newcastle defenders, and now Desiree Doué has a second go as he takes on Miley from the left side of the box, and it's a fast cross in towards Dembele, but too fast and not at the best angle, and he had to clear it back towards a friendly player. Here's Neves, now Vitinha plays it to Dembele, who's free on the right hand side, plays a nice little chip there back to Neves, and then Vitinha lines up from the outside of the shot, blocked by Dan Burn. Vitinha now shifts it onto his left foot, plays it back to Warren Zaire Emery, then crosses it to Zaire Emery. Can't do much with that as he gives it to Desiree Doué, who tries to cross it into the box. Now here's Dembele just outside the box, and then first time strike from Vitinha goes over the bar. Vitinha could have got a second goal there, and it was just rising a bit too high for the Portuguese midfielder. Good effort though. Let's just recap what just happened. PSG had a series of really dangerous looking chances there, and Dembele played it short just in front of the D2. Vitinha, who shoots first time with his right foot, tries to curl it into the top left hand corner, but it was rising just a little bit too far. Didn't even grace the crossbar there, but it looked awfully similar to one of the chances that he scored in the first half. Of course, that was PSG's only goal. Vitinha having a really good season so far. 8 assists this season across all competitions. Of course, this game he's doing a little bit of both, providing and scoring. And Nick Voltemade will be the next substitution for Newcastle United. He comes off for Yoann Wissa, who joined from Brentford, of course, last year. He'll provide a different profile of striker. Nick Voltemade, obviously the sort of taller, bulkier version, but he hasn't done much today, and of course that's why he's come off for Wissa. And now Vitinha back with the ball. PSG naturally back with the possession. As we approach the 80th minute, it is still PSG 1, Newcastle 1 here. Now Dembele sizing up his options. Gordon trying to block him, fails to do so. Wissa, the substitute, looking at where he should sort of be on the pitch. I hope Eddie Howe's given him the correct instructions there. and Desiree Doué tries to find Achraf Hakimi far on the right hand side, but actually Lewis Hall gets in the way and intercepts. Now Sandro Tonali begins the counter attack. He's got Gordon to his left, substitute Visa straight through the middle. Tonali tries to go for the middle to Visa but doesn't reach him. Visa is way too far forwards and he plays the ball behind him, and then PSG managed to get it away. Nuno Mendes beginning the counter attack, actually nutmegs Lewis Miley there. Driving forwards as Nuno Mendes, cutting towards the middle as he's pushed away by the right back. The pressure is just too great. Now Dembele driving towards the box. Diving in is Lewis Hall to try and block it, but Sven Botman is there instead and pushes away the pass straight towards Sandro Tonali, who can now try and restart Newcastle's attack. Dropping in deep is Gordon, who plays it back to Ramsey. Now here's Miley. Malik Tviar now for Newcastle. Ramsey, he's got plenty of mud all over his shirt. You can hardly see his name and number. He's been down in the muds. Jacob Ramsey has been for Newcastle, and now Dan Burn is actually overlapping on the left wing. He's got plenty of space. Marquinhos is trying to stop him, plays it through to Gordon, who's running into the centre. Gordon loses his footing a little bit and is squeezed there by two PSG defenders. Referee immediately says no penalty, despite Gordon being shoved and squeezed by two defenders. It's Pacho and Marquinhos who squeeze him from both sides as he tries to hound the ball down inside PSG's box, but Newcastle have no choice. They have to play on as PSG do retain possession and get it back here. Here's Gonçalo Ramos, one of his first touches of the game here for PSG. Plays it out wide, but then comes back to the middle to Zaire Emery. Now Zaire Emery has some options here. Plays it back to Neves, obviously quite a safe one. Neves being a fantastic little player in these smaller spaces. Hakimi plays it back to Neves. Hakimi now has actually more space than he did when he passed it back. This is why PSG play the way they do with the triangles. Gonçalo Ramos trying to offer an option as he runs into the box, but decides not to. Now hanging on to the right-hand side of the box, Gonçalo Ramos. Desiree Doué is free on the left-hand side as Nuno Mendes collects it towards the centre circle. Opts not to go there though. Vitinha passes it out wide to the right-hand side where Hakimi is waiting, where he takes on Lewis Hall. And then suddenly Neves is free in the middle, who tries to pass it back, cut it back to the D where Vitinha was waiting, but Vitinha tries to sort of volley it first time, Di Canio style, but it does sort of get muddled up in his feet, and PSG have to restart their attack. Desiree Doué crossing it into the box from deep with his right foot, cleared there by the defenders, headed on by Pacho to Marquinhos. Marquinhos has an option to his right, Hakimi, which he uses. Hakimi tries to use Dembele as sort of an underlap, but it doesn't work. Dembele not ready for the pass there, and he actually says, holds his hand up to Hakimi and says, "I'm sorry." It's currently the 80th minute here at the Parc des Princes, and actually it's still 1-1 between PSG and Newcastle, which is bad news for both teams, because as things stand, PSG are in 9th and Newcastle are in 10th. This means that both teams will be going to the playoffs instead of the automatic qualification for the knockout rounds. Both teams really need to win this game here. Nick Pope starts the game back with a goal kick here, headed on by Jacob Ramsey, and actually the referee gives a foul. Looks like Yohan Visa got a little bit too close to William Pacho there, perhaps an elbow in the face. Referee says get on with it. Desiree Doué now on his own on the left wing. He's being closed now by Barnes and Miley, so he plays it back to Zaire Emery, back to Vitinha. Now Marquinhos pushing forwards a little bit more offensively here. Dembele is open on the far right, and Hakimi will pass it to him. Dembele decides not to take on Gordon. Dembele instead passes it to Hakimi, who drops it deep and crosses it into the box. Gonçalo Ramos does head it on, but not enough power there, and Nick Pope is able to claim it very nicely. Dan Burn giving him a good old pat on the back. Well done, keeper. Love to see a good relation there between the two England defenders. Obviously, Nick Pope has played for England plenty of times, and Dan Burn has had, I believe, at least one cap. And there are some updates elsewhere. Chelsea have taken the lead. João Pedro has scored to make it 3-2 to Chelsea against Napoli. Meanwhile, here at the Parc des Princes, it is PSG 1, Newcastle 1. Once again, both teams need to get a win if they want automatic qualification. A draw is not enough to save them from the dreaded playoffs. Here is Nuno Mendes now, passing it to the centre circle where Vitinha is waiting as always. I'm sure you guys are sick of me saying that, but of course I have to describe what I'm seeing, and what I'm seeing is currently Vitinha passing it to Neves, who has now passed it wide to the left wing to Desiree Doué. Looks to shape it onto his right foot, opts not to pass it with his left foot back to Neves, who zips straight past the referee there, who's in a really bright blue shirt. Now out wide to Zaire Emery. Desiree Doué skimming through the box there to try to get back into position. And now here is Vitinha. Hakimi making a run to the box, opts not to use him. Vitinha passes it back to Neves to his left, who passes once more to his left to Desiree Doué, who sizing up his options now. Harvey Barnes making sure that nobody gets past, so Desiree Doué passes it back to Vitinha. Vitinha now to Nuno Mendes, back to Zaire Emery, looking at his options. Harvey Barnes, ever keen, staring at the ball, making sure nothing gets past him. Now Marquinhos has some space here, but passes it to Dembele, driving into the box, tries to find Desiree Doué, but unfortunately a little bit too cute, and Desiree Doué wasn't ready, had to really lunge to try and get the ball under control. It doesn't quite work, and now Newcastle begin their counter-attack after the ball deflects off Desiree Doué. Anthony Gordon charging down against Marquinhos. Anthony Gordon, lovely back heel towards Harvey Barnes, who shoots first time towards the Russian goalkeeper, who saves and parries it out, and PSG get it away. And Newcastle, a golden opportunity missed there by Harvey Barnes, and it stays 1-1 between PSG. And actually Newcastle have to be so careful here because there's lots of space on the left wing. In fact, here's Zaire Emery against Lewis Miley. Overlapping him is Desiree Doué, but he goes alone into the box and in towards Dembele, who tries to shoot but deflects off the rear of Sven Botman, out for a PSG corner. Yeah, a bit of end-to-end football here, and Anthony Gordon showing just why he is so important. He could have gone alone, he could have squared it to Visa, who was running towards the penalty spot area, but instead opts to go for the back heel because he knows that Harvey Barnes is overlapping him where there are no other PSG defenders. Unfortunately, the shot does go straight towards Matvey Safonov, the Russian goalkeeper for PSG, who's standing in for Lucas Chevalier. And actually there will be some substitutes for PSG here. Looks like Melulu is coming on, and so is Ibrahim Mbaye coming on here for Warren Zaire Emery. And Nuno Mendes here will start the corner attack, and Vitinha sizing up his shot from the outside of the box and tries to curl it about 30 yards out, but Nick Pope not falling for it again this time. And yeah, like I said, Warren Zaire Emery looks to have come off for Ibrahim Mbaye. Seni Mailulu has come on for what looks to be, I can't quite see unfortunately, but Newcastle have begun their counter-attack. Anthony Gordon in the box, tries to shoot, but they falls to Harvey Barnes, who hits the outside of the post. How on earth has that happened here? I take my eyes away from the screen for 1 second, and Newcastle nearly scored. Let's just recap exactly what just happened. A long sort of kick there from the goalkeeper finds Anthony Gordon, who actually gets the better of Marquinhos, but Pacho is there to block it, but the ball doesn't deflects in a favourable way for PSG. In fact, it goes underneath the legs of the PSG defenders, and Harvey Barnes is waiting there right behind Nuno Mendes, who volleys it first time. It looks like it was going to go into the top right hand corner of the net, but it actually bounces off the crossbar and out for a PSG goal kick. And now Safonov will resume play here. PSG retaining possession as always. Here is Mbaye now. Desiree Doué on the left wing. Mbaye adding some pace as he tries to get in behind Jacob Ramsey. Jacob Ramsey saying, no, not today. Stops that interception there. Tries to pass it away, but now Vitinha intercepts that one too. And Vitinha's got some space here as Dembele is there on the overlap, and then Hakimi's overlapping him, who tries to square it. Hakimi headed away by Botman straight off the line. Now Dembele again tries to wrestle with Lewis Hall, who gets the better of him. Lewis Hall running into some traffic, which includes Dembele, who wins the ball back. And now here is Desiree Doué back to Mbaye. Mbaye taking on Miley, tries the low cross here into the box. It doesn't work. Kicked away there by Malik Tiar for Newcastle, and now Yohan Visa will try his counter attack. Visa tackled to the ground there by Desiree Doué, and it looks to be out for a PSG throw-in. Yohan Visa asking the fourth official, surely that's a Newcastle throw. The unimpressed look from Luis Enrique says it all. He really was not convinced by that whatsoever. And just in case you are tuning in now, we have just reached the 89th minute of this UEFA Champions League fixture between PSG and Newcastle United. The current score is PSG 1, Newcastle 1. My name is Charles Kim. I've been giving you the live coverage of this Champions League game. As things stand, both PSG and Newcastle will be going to the Champions League playoffs and not the automatic knockouts, as both would have probably originally aimed to have done at the start of this campaign. There's only 60 seconds left of regular time here. Sandro Tonali with the free kick. Plenty of Newcastle players have gone forwards. It was a free kick, not a throw in, my bad. And Sandro Tonali takes it. This is giving a flashback to many PSG defenders of how Newcastle scored before, but this time it won't happen. Dan Burn tries to play it down, but doesn't work. Tonali now at the centre circle volleys it away to clear it because there were just so many PSG players flooding forwards for a potential counter-attack. And now Achraf Hakimi has the ball, passes it to Vitinha, who once again will be jogging forwards, looking at his options. Miley and Hall, both Lewises on both flanks, tracking back, and Vitinha will try a chipped through ball to Hakimi. Now has to take on Lewis Hall. Gets it away, Hakimi, all the way back to a fellow teammate here in the form of Desiree Doué. Sizing up his options, plays it left to Ousmane Dembele, now on the left wing. An overlapping pass here, lovely there from Melulu, but it goes out for a PSG throw-in after it deflects off of the rear of Miley. Miley and Melulu on the same side. That's going to be a bit of a tongue twister for me. As you can see, I'm already struggling with the two Lewises. So, appreciate it, Luis Enrique, for adding an extra one in there. There will be 4 minutes of added time, and as things stand, it is PSG 1, Newcastle 1. Both teams will be going into the playoff round instead of automatic promotion. Here's Nuno Mendes. One final roll of the dice for PSG, taking on Miley, who is hesitating, tracking that ball really hard. Passes it in towards Melulu now, in towards the path of Vitinha outside the deep. Passes it outside one more to Ramos. Now Dembele with a shot over the bar. It looks promising there from PSG. Good bit of overlapping play as PSG sort of tried to circumnavigate this really low Newcastle block. Instead of going through it, trying to cross overhead, they've been crossing it and passing it in triangles along the ground into the box, but it didn't work that time. Dembele off target once again for PSG. The Frenchman not showing up this time. And Nick Pope will resume the game with a long goal kick headed away there by the PSG midfielder, and it will fall kindly to Ousmane Dembele on the right wing here. He's got plenty of options, including Gonçalo Ramos in the middle. Won't go for him. In fact, he'll go for this left-footed shot inside the box in his own, but it's blocked by the Newcastle defenders. And then Lewis Hall is there to collect, tries to get it away, but Ibrahim Mbaye is causing all sorts of trouble, and he gives the ball to Achraf Hakimi, and now Dembele has another chance. Mbaye is on the overlap, doesn't go for him, instead go back to Vitinha in the centre circle. Now Hakimi. Back to Mbaye. Hakimi trying to give him an option on the overlap, which he will use. Hakimi tries to chip it into the box, but blocked there by Lewis Hall. The 21-year-old English fullback doing a good job so far in this game, and he'll actually go out for a Newcastle throw-in after a mistimed 1-2 between Marquinhos and Achraf Hakimi. Let's go back to Lewis Hall, who joined in 2023 from Chelsea. It's 3 years ago. And he's already made 80 appearances. Joined as a real youngster from Newcastle, no real experience, and here he is playing at the Parc des Princes against PSG, trying his best to pocket Ousmane Dembele, which has had mixed results, but we can commend the effort here. Coming into the last minute of added time here, Newcastle have just won a free kick near the halfway line, about 5 yards behind. Nick Pope passes the ball here to Sandro Tonali. He says, hey, you take this, I don't want to be responsible. But Dan Burn, Visa, they're all getting forwards as Sandro Tonali looks over this. Eddie Howe looking with his mouth agape. There is only 1 minute here. If Newcastle score, they can get automatic qualification. Everyone ready for the Sandro Tonali free kick from deep. And here he is, sizing up his options. The referee still having a word, and Sandro Tonali takes the free kick, and Dan Burn is running long. He gets onto it, heads it away, but actually he is offside, and he is absolutely furious. Waves his arm at the referee, cannot believe it. Eddie Howe can't believe it either. Here he comes. Actually, it wasn't an offside call, it was a foul call. Dan Burn allegedly pushing the back of Marquinhos as he went to go head the ball. That's why he was so furious. That's why Eddie Howe got up out of his seat to the edge of the technical area to yell at the fourth official. But there are 10 seconds left in this game. It's PSG 1, Newcastle 1. PSG have the possession. 5 seconds left here. Nuno Mendes on the left wing. He's got Mbaye to his left. Mbaye now passes it back to Vitinha. They need to go forwards here or the referee will blow it, and there she blows. PSG 1, Newcastle 1. It's full time here at the Parc des Princes, and as a result of this draw, both teams will now have to go through the Champions League playoffs rather than going through automatic qualifications into the knockout stage. If you are just tuning in now, you have just missed this game, but let me just give you a quick recap of what happened. In the first half, in the second minute, a penalty was awarded to PSG after a Lewis Miley handball, which was checked by VAR. Ousmane Dembele stepped up to take it, but unfortunately for him, Nick Pope saved it. It was a fantastic save from the goalkeeper. However, only a few minutes later, Vitinha scored for PSG, and for the rest of the first half, PSG were totally on top, until added time in the 47th minute, when Joe Willock scored after a Sandro Tonali free kick and a bit of a defensive mess up in the PSG box. Going into the second half, Newcastle did shake it up a little bit, bringing on Harvey Barnes and Anthony Gordon, two big goal threats there for Newcastle. And Anthony Gordon and Harvey Barnes both had their fair share of chances but couldn't convert them. So did Vitinha and Ousmane Dembele on the other side, and it has ended 1-1 here at the Parc Des Princes. I repeat, PSG 1, Newcastle 1. You have been listening to Football on the Commentary Hub here, the best place to find your alternative radio commentary. My name is Charles Kim, and thank you and good night.